So counting them. 2, knowing what they mean. 3, implementing them. What do you mean by implementing them? It means that some of Allah's beautiful names can be implemented by the humans in themselves. So Allah is merciful, Rahim, and He orders us to be also merciful. Allah is Rafiq, kind, and He tells us to be kind. Allah is Kareem, generous, and He also ordered us to be generous, and so on. So this is one way of implementing Allah's beautiful names. Also, part of implementing them is to ask Allah Azza wa Jal whenever you want something that can be related to His name. So if you want Allah's mercy, you say, Ya Rahman, Irhamni. Oh, the most merciful, have mercy upon me. It wouldn't be appropriate to say, Ya Jabbar, Irhamni. It wouldn't be appropriate to say, Ya Aziz, Irhamni. Because these attributes relate to Allah's power and might. So you don't ask forgiveness by calling Him with these names. And likewise, when you want victory upon the enemies of Islam, you don't say, Ya Ghafoor, O most forgiving, grant us victory over the enemies. This is mocking Allah Azza wa Jal. You use the term Ya Aziz, Ya Jabbar, Ya Qawi. Grant us victory over our enemies, because this is related to what you're asking. You want provision, you ask with Ya Razzaq Rzuqni, and so on. So this is learning them, knowing them, counting them, knowing what they mean, implementing them by either calling Allah Azza wa Jal or having these attributes in your life and doing what Allah loves of them. The second benefit of learning this science is that without it, you cannot know Allah. So many people come and say, Shaykh, we do not find khushu' in salat. We don't have concentration in salat. We're always negligent, absent-minded when we make dhikr. Why is that? The answer is very easy. Because you do not know who you are worshipping. Knowing Allah Azza wa Jal is divided into 2 types. And it can be looked at from various angles. But one of the types is that is shared by Muslims and non-Muslims, by sinners and righteous people. And that is to acknowledge there is a God. To acknowledge there is Allah, the Almighty, who created the universe. Everybody knows this. So this is part of knowing Allah, but this is general. There is this specific type of knowledge of Allah Azza wa Jal that can only be given to those who know His beautiful names and attributes, which would make them bashful of Allah, which would make their hearts connected and related to Allah, always looking up to Allah Azza wa Jal and to the day they meet Him. And there is nothing more important for a soul than to know Allah Azza wa Jal, the Creator, as Ibn al-Qayyim says. There is no way to acknowledge and recognize your Lord without knowing His beautiful names and attributes. The more you know, the more you are closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. You're seeking Him subhanahu wa ta'ala and you're striving for that. And the more you are ignorant of Allah's beautiful names and attributes, the further you are, the more ignorant of Allah, the more resentment you feel when you're called to come closer or to do any sort of good deeds. Thirdly, knowing Allah's beautiful names is the origin of all forms of worship. So if someone comes to you in Islam, says, what is the origin of worshiping Allah? No one would doubt saying Tawheed. Without Tawheed, there is no knowledge of Allah and there is no worshipping of Allah. And we know that nowadays these new students of knowledge, new da'is, new trend in America and Europe who deny the importance of Tawheed. And some of them even go to the extent of rejecting the concept of the name, and it says, where is Tawheed mentioned in the Qur'an? And this shows you how ignorant people can be, regardless of their fame. Allah Azza wa Jal ordered us in the Qur'an of Tawheed. He said, no, 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 I want to see the word Tawheed. Well, in Sahih al-Imam Muslim, and also in al-Bukhari, when the Prophet ﷺ sent Mu'adh ibn Jabal to Yemen, he said, let it be the first thing you call them to is Tawheed of Allah Azza wa Jal. An yuwahhidullah. So the Prophet himself used the terminology of Tawheed, the oneness of Allah Azza wa Jal. And this is the mother of all sciences. And no form of worship would be accepted without the proper Tawheed intact and found. Otherwise, there's no point in having it. Without Tawheed, who are you worshipping? Yes, you're praying, you're fasting, you're performing Hajj, you're giving zakat. To whom? If you do not know Allah Azza wa Jal, if you do not have Tawheed, and this is an essential part of your aqeedah, of your conviction. Without Tawheed, if you're doubtful of whom you're worshipping, you don't know his description, you don't know his names, why are you doing what you're doing? He says, well, everybody's fasting, so I'm fasting. But seriously, I don't believe in this being controlling the universe. Then you're a kafir, with all due respect, or without respect. If you don't have the conviction of Allah, the knowledge of Allah, the Tawheed of Allah, and I'm not talking about Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, the Tawheed of worship, or Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, Tawheed of Lordship, or Tawheed al-Asma-ul-Sifat, which we are talking about at the moment. I'm talking about Tawheed in general. You have to have this in order for you to be accepted. Now, I don't know what is the status with the control room about the questions and answers. So should we continue or do we have a break? I presume that we should continue until I am given a notice, because I believe that we're supposed to have like 10 or 15 minutes remaining for the questions and answers. But I hope that everything is going fine. Fourthly, among the benefits of studying Allah's beautiful names is that your dua is accepted. If you study the names of Allah and understand them, then your dua will be accepted. Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ-ul-Husna. Allah has the most beautiful names. So, call upon Him by them. This is Allah's order for you, to call upon Him by the names, His names. And He promised us that if we were to call Him, then we are to be responded and answered. And as I said, Allah Azza wa Jal loves to be called by His names. And this is what the Prophet used to say, alayhi salatu, in his dua. He used to praise Allah by His beautiful names and attributes. He says, Allahumma ya hayyu ya qayyum bi rahmatika astaghith. O Allah, all living, the sustainer, in your mercy I seek refuge. So the Prophet praises Allah by His beautiful names. And this shows you that he also asks Allah, I ask you by every name belonging to you, which you have named yourself with, or revealed in your book, or you taught to any of your creation, or you have preserved in the knowledge of the unseen with you. So this is what Allah Azza wa Jal ordered us to do, and this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of the benefits of learning it, that would be a bonus inshallah.